I'm sure you've heard the expression that God works in mysterious ways. This idea of mystery appears to be the defining characteristic of experience itself. But we hardly ever stop to assess how or why that is. Mystery ironically holds the secret to the mystery of subjectivity. And I'm going to explain what this means as this video unfolds. But first, we have to try and pin down what we are talking about here. What is mystery really? What do we mean when we say that? When I think about the quintessential essence of mystery, I'd say it's something that works, but we can't really explain how, like how gravity is physics' biggest mystery. Mystery is something that happened, but we can't trace back to it and completely connect all the dots, like the mystery of our genetic lineage. However, the axiom of natural philosophy is that nature makes no leaps. This means that everything is connected, which is what most psychedelic thinkers naturally intuit. If something isn't connected to anything else, it is singular and beyond our perception. It makes no sense to us. This is the one, the monad, the alien, the other, the imagination. So mystery has to be that which is causally disconnected to a partial degree. It isn't complete nonsense because if it were, it wouldn't be perceivable at all. By definition, nonsense isn't able to be sensed. Mystery is when there is enough information present to know that there is an explanation, but for whatever reason we can't. If everything is connected, then it would be the gaps in our network. And when you boil it all down, it's really just partial knowing, which is what chaos is when you really think about it. This is what we see in chaos theory, that everything is somehow connected. Nature makes no leaps, but trying to determine many of these connections causes our perception to go fuzzy. Perfect knowledge is the removal of all uncertainty. Pure uncertainty is the absence of any knowledge whatsoever, and chaos is the gradient which lies in the middle. And this gradient is where all of the spooky stuff happens. This is where mystery is actually encountered, where the magic literally becomes real. I talk about memory and the imagination as if they are these two poles. If they are two poles, then this gradient is the most important as it pertains to you because it's where you currently are. You are in the twilight zone, and the exploration of this zone is a magical adventure. I think a prime example of this is chess. Chess is very interesting. I used to be pretty decent at chess. You could say I was a natural. When I was a child, I used to beat everyone. Kids my age, adults, it didn't matter. If you were like me, someone who didn't study chess and just played for fun in your spare time, you would have a tough time playing against me and would probably lose. Now, I had this one friend who enjoyed playing with me, and I would always beat him without even trying. But eventually, I guess he got tired of losing. He started buying chess books and actually began to study chess. He kind of became slightly obsessed with it. And then after this, whenever we would play, I would consistently lose. However, to my surprise, I actually found losing just as enjoyable as winning because it was so magical. You see, the thing about chess is that when you are terribly outplayed, you will lose and not know what happened. Pieces will get captured in ways that seem mind-boggling, as if they just disappeared from play. Jiu-jitsu is kind of like this as well, where you think you have this impenetrable defense or guard, and someone more adept can just fold you up like a pretzel. The thing that they have in common is that they are essentially games of who can destroy the other person's reality model. It's one plan of how things will go versus another, and the process of having your reality model disrupted is magical. Things start to happen that seem causally disconnected. It's the influx of mystery, chaos, possibility, and magic. This is the hallmark of the psychedelic experience because that's what they do. They disrupt your reality model. When this happens in our normal daily lives, we call it some kind of trauma, or put less dramatically, it's surprise. The disruption of a reality model by definition means that things stop working how we expect it to. Things no longer appear connected. And in chess, this causal disconnect usually occurs because you and your opponent are viewing time differently. Your causal relationship to the game is different from your opponent's. The rook capture that you didn't see as being possible last turn was actually planned 4 turns ago, so as a result, it looks like it came out of nowhere. It's really hard to translate the feeling into words, but when someone is better than you at a zero-sum game like chess, there's not much you can do to beat them. They become something like a wizard capable of performing magic because this phenomenon of being outsmarted is magical. This is why the wizard is so closely tied to the wise old man archetype. A sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. A highly elevated intelligence will be able to do sorcery. You could say magic is determined by how deep into the quote-unquote future something is in relationship to everything else. I mean, that's how we phrase it. You would say the person who is much more skilled at chess than you is advanced. This person is further ahead than you into something. However, the thing that they are further into is what no one pays attention to. Chess is a textbook example because they are figuratively further ahead in the future than you. You see 1 move ahead, they see 4. And as a result, they become much harder to follow. This is why people who become too far advanced in anything cease to make sense to the layperson. This is something that is very apparent in mathematics, where high-level math is like this arcane alien language to the rest of us. But it doesn't matter how advanced they are. If you catch up to them, the magic simply disappears. The closer you get to their skill level, the more everything makes sense because it all has something to do with proximity and possibility space. That's what they are further ahead in or more advanced into. There is no future. There is only possibility or potential. The more skilled chess player is more capable than the novice because they have more potential. That's what they have advanced into, potentiality, which translates into capability. Now, the interesting thing is seeing the person who is like a wizard to you get obliterated by someone else. The same thing they did to you, someone else can do it to them. It's only natural. But it shows that magic is perspectival, just like rest. I talked about that in my previous video. Things closer to the imagination look magical, and things closer to memory are at a state of rest. There are levels to perception, and where you are in possibility space determines what you see. You can look at something like marriage, for example. On your local level, your POV, you see marriage in terms of an interpersonal bond. But if you zoom out to the perspective of a country, you see marriage as a social technology for stabilizing civilization. Then if you zoom further out and try to assume the perspective of biology itself, you see marriage as a vehicle for stable information transfer. It's the same phenomenon just zoomed out to ever more expansive perspectives. And the meaning of this phenomenon changes depending on your perspective. Douglas Hofstadter talks about how meaning is layered, or you could think of it in terms of the Einsteinian block universe, where from a certain perspective, everything in the universe is happening at once from this supposed God's eye view. What Einstein is actually talking about here is destiny. However, it's not just the universe this applies to, it applies to everything. You could say in chess, from the expert's perspective, the novice is doomed. They are at a state of rest because they lack the potential to escape their fate. Now, from the novice's perspective, they don't know that they are playing a highly skilled opponent, so they only see their potential to win. The weird part about all of this is that David can slay Goliath. A grandmaster can be beaten by someone who's playing their very first game. It's not impossible. There is always an element of uncertainty because the imagination is boundless. It's what's keeping this whole thing going. And because of its nature, it's generating this poetic paradox that we will get into later. But the game of chess is unsolved. I want you to really think about that. There are so many possibilities in a simple chess game, we can't currently calculate it. Maybe with quantum computing that will change, but chess is a tiny board with a handful of well-defined rules, and we still can't figure it out. By comparison, even the life of an amoeba is far more complex. So what does that say about you? However, if chess became solved, all of the potential it had would collapse and it would transform into something meaningful. Maybe that meaning is boredom, or it just becomes some kind of historical artifact. It would be put on display in a museum as Here Lies Chess, the game that stumped us for centuries. Who knows? But that's what happens when potential is exhausted. Transformation into meaning. It's like when I knew I was going to win at chess and no one around me could beat me, the game stopped being about winning and transformed into something else. They had no potential to win. They were at rest in that regard, so I began to play a different game than my opponent with a different set of unknowns. For example, I became interested in my opponent's reaction to the game. I would ask questions like, why are you doing that? Or do you feel like giving up? They became the new game. This new game was built on top of the platform of the rest state of them not being able to win. This is emergent meaning. If they raised their skill level, I wouldn't be able to play that game anymore because they would then have the potential to beat me. They close the distance between us in possibility space. As they get closer to me, they appear more mysterious. Their moves become more chaotic. It's the same with everything. Just look at money. When you're trying to get money, you are in survival mode. You relate to reality one way, and when you get enough, you relate to reality another way. You can then play a different game. Now that you have the platform of money underneath you, different meaning will emerge. Stability allows attention to travel elsewhere. I want to quickly announce a special project I'm working on. I'm making a premium digital experience where you are able to travel and learn the 3,000 years of history behind esotericism and philosophy. We are going to launch a closed beta in about 2 weeks. It's invite only, and we send the invite via email. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, sign up at paramind.org. It's free. We just need the email in order to send the invite. The ascent into possibility presents itself to us as greater understanding or higher intelligence. This thing we call intelligence is very taken for granted. Intelligence is some kind of super phenomenon or magic power or the capacity to perform magic or something like that. It is the ability to apprehend patterns. This is literally how IQ tests work. High IQ people are able to see all kinds of patterns that are invisible to someone with a low IQ. The cognition of patterns is what our reality is, and learning, which is the apprehension of a new pattern, is spooky. It's really some kind of psychical phenomenon. It's akin to taming a daemon, not a demon as we've come to be familiar with the term, but the traditional use of the word daemon. It's like a spirit or psychical entity which you can catch in the net of language. I call them thought forms. You could say that when we study, what we are essentially doing is hunting for patterns, like a biologist searching for fauna in the rainforest. You really see this within the landscapes of mathematics. There are all kinds of strange objects they encounter and collect out there in math world. Geometric objects which look like molecules from higher planes, entire landscapes filled with strange fauna. They are even classified into families in a similar way. To apprehend a new pattern is to identify it. This identification is the capturing of it. That's what the word apprehend literally means, to capture. Reality is like a zoo of psychical objects. It's an ecosystem of mind or thought forms. I guess this is really just a more psychedelic twist on the Platonic forms, but that's what we do with language. We take thought forms and put them into a box, and we created a system in which these thought forms can be shared across 3D space. That's what we do when we speak. We are transmitting our thoughts. We connect various sounds to certain images or ideas. And if you and I connect the same sound to an image, I can call that image to your attention anytime I like. I can sort of summon the thought form into your mind like some kind of sorcery. It's all about language. That's what everything is. We speak language. We eat language. It's all language. Experience is us mining the imagination for language. We explore the imagination and box it up into cages like explorers in a rainforest boxing up specimens. In quantum mechanics, this boxing happens with the act of measurement. It's when the superposition collapses and information comes out. This measurement is to name or identify. It's some hidden factor being pulled into the event space of conscious attention, and the way this happens really baffles me. It's somewhat paradoxical. How does a pattern go from being unseen to seen? It's like if a pattern is something that repeats or cycles, then how would you ever see something the first time it happens? Kind of how there are things that we don't know that we don't know. How does something go from being nonsense to sense? How does something come from nothing? It's the oldest philosophical question out there. There is this seemingly insurmountable gap. However, nature makes no leaps. And I think it has something to do with creativity. It's ultimately an act of creation. Creativity is how chaos becomes order, the ability to take something unseen and make it seen, to actualize possibility, to identify. It is an act of creation. Abracadabra, I create as I speak. It's a miracle. The unknown is the unidentified, the alone, that which has no name. It is silence, which brings us to the idea within information theory that entropy is missing information. Chaos is partial knowing, or as the father of information theory, Claude Shannon, puts it, it is missing information. Chaos in mathematics is described as being pseudo-randomness, or in other words, it's a pattern that we can't completely see. It's like being in a rainforest where you can hear the crackling of the branches, you can see the ruffling leaves as the shadows move through the trees. You know something is out there, but you don't have enough information to identify it. This missing information becomes gaps in your perspective which allow the unexpected to take place. These gaps are windows into the imagination. If you view subjectivity as being enveloped by a semi-permeable membrane, these gaps are like channels which allow potential to penetrate its walls. Strangely enough, this missing information is fundamental to life and being itself. This is how things are able to be in the first place. Information will always be missing because everything sits in a relative position in relationship to everything else. You don't know what it's like to be me right now and vice versa. This is subjectivity, the gaps in your perception. It's the fingerprint of who you are, your identity. This is more or less proven by Gödel's incompleteness theorem in mathematics. This is the uncertainty principle within physics. This is the part of reality we currently exist in, this fragmented, dualistic, categorical, logic-based Cartesian-style separateness. It's a perception that's based on causality. We call it pattern recognition. Pattern, connection, information, and relationships, or what I call memory. The imagination is what fuels the process of becoming, or to be more down-to-earth about it, missing information is what keeps everything going on this planet. The tiger would starve to death if all of the animals could see it coming. Missing information is how traps and lures work, camouflage, poison, and it's not just about predation. Everything that is survival is the exploitation of missing information. You lack energy, I have sugar. Let's make a deal. That's how nature works. There is a key and lock relationship to everything that happens. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, right? It is the resolution of dissonance. However, this idea of missing information is trippier than we think. We think if it's a gap in the network, we can just fill the gap, and in an elementary sense, that's true. However, these gaps are somehow psychical. It has to do with the transformation of perception. To understand what I mean by this, you just have to look at what missing information often presents itself to us as Puzzles. There are all kinds of puzzles: mathematical puzzles, spatial puzzles, linguistic puzzles, people. If you don't think people are puzzles, I can tell you've never had a girlfriend, but the list goes on and on. As a side note, I think the ultimate form of puzzle is the paradox. I believe a paradox is a puzzle which requires you to access it from another dimension in order to understand it. You could say it's like two factors which appear disconnected, but are actually tied in a knot in a hidden dimension. That's where the missing information is. That's where it has to be, because it fundamentally makes no sense if you limit it to just this dimension. For example, something that is paradoxical for a 2D flatlander wouldn't be that way for you. You could just untie the knot and show them that it's connected and probably blow their mind in the process. This is what happens to us when we encounter a paradox. It's an illusion of perspective. And paradox is deeply embedded into our being. We are inside of one, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, this concept of missing information, puzzles, and transformation of perception can be better understood by taking a look at cryptography. The father of information theory was very interested in cryptography because once you start talking about information, cryptography just naturally follows. Cryptography is huge in cybernetics and warfare. War would probably be impossible without it. So would the internet. But it's way deeper than that. It's everywhere all of the time. Reality is a swarming cryptological maelstrom of information. I think cryptography and mysticism go hand in hand. For me, mysticism could be looked at as the study of hiddenness, mystery itself, while cryptography is the study of hiding. One looks at what it is, and the other explores how it works. And the same way mysticism has been around since forever, humanity has been creating ways of hiding information for a very long time. Special clothes and marking, secret handshakes, signals, symbols, and seals. This is all language. In cryptography, the goal is to create secure channels of communication. Well, that's what language is. That's what it's for, to communicate. That's what reality is doing. It's in constant communication. The word articulate has two meanings. One is to speak or write clearly. The other is to connect or join together. This is language. It is the way memory is expressed as pattern, connection, information, and relationships. And this is all made possible by hiding information. Adding to what I said earlier, hiding information is paradoxically akin to an act of creation. It is the utilization of language to create an identity. An identity is that which has the property of being unique. The more unique the identity, the more hidden the information is. You could say your identity is information that has been constricted to be so specific that only you can have it. Only you can be you. This probably makes more intuitive sense if you reverse it. The act of decryption is the act of identifying, right? In a crowd of people, all you have to do is give the signal and I can identify you. To decrypt is to reveal, to make known. What encryption does is causally disconnect someone from what's inside. It is obscured by potential like the statue of David hiding in the marble. It becomes a gap in their perception. For example, magic squares are an old form of mathematical puzzle. They were believed to contain magical properties. Now, if you saw it and knew nothing about it, it would look chaotic. It wouldn't make sense. You would be causally disconnected from it. However, as soon as you figure out how it works, you reveal its identity. The chaos becomes order. Everything becomes connected. The catch here is, if you pay attention, in order to decrypt, you entangle yourself into what you are decrypting. You articulate with it. You connect to it. You speak its language. And we call this entanglement learning. Or in other words, the object remains the same. The square doesn't change. It's your perspective which changes to see it. Your mind molds to fit into it like a key into a lock. This is what learning is. This is how intelligence works. We don't just see patterns, we apprehend them. They become a part of us. I guess a more scientific way of putting it would be to say they become integrated into our reality model, almost like a garden of specimens. Our relationship to reality is currently like this. It is a multidimensional puzzle of perspectives where reality isn't just revealing itself to us. We are revealing ourselves to reality. We expand our perspectives to understand more of nature and are becoming ever more entangled with it as we learn more about it. We are unlocking more and more of its secrets, and in this process, a master key is being forged, but we will return to that towards the end. But what chaos and hidden information ultimately imply is an invisible order. We are immersed within a hidden harmony, and harmony is the key term here. I mentioned earlier that the key in lock relationship is the resolution of dissonance. Well, the resolution of dissonance is called harmony. This is one of the oldest cliches of mysticism for a reason. Because the logos is reason itself, nothing within it is without it. It's just about being able to see it. You could say reality has an algorithm. An algorithm is a set of instructions that are executed in order to fulfill a purpose. And even though there appears to be no etymological link, there is a kind of rhythm. This rhythm or harmony is memory, which is the body of the logos. Once you see everything as different expressions of memory, you can't unsee it. For example, now I understand that a role model is just a social image or a social gene that is propped up to be replicated throughout the human organism. Your child models your behavior when they are young because everything replicates. And speaking of rhythm, since we are using musical metaphors, that's what rhymes are. We love it when things rhyme because rhyming is memory. They are words and phrases which harmonize and resonate due to their similar structure. And my point is that all of reality rhymes just like this. It fractally resonates into dimensions both seen and unseen. This is the logos. This is why we are able to pay attention in the first place, or have a reality model, however you want to look at it. Attention is able to become reality because of the fractalized nature of it. That's what pure resonance looks like. All information needed to form a functioning reality model is present in each instance of reality. Like how you see in the holographic principle where any fragment contains all the information of the whole. It's like the old Buddhist expression of being able to see eternity in a grain of rice. This is why I can place you anywhere and you can still make sense of things and never become truly epistemologically lost. You aren't just flung into some senseless abyss. Once you understand that we are inside the body of the logos, then you'll also see that's what a big chunk of spirituality is. Ritual, ceremony, magic, magic with a K, or thaumaturgy, all of these practices that people participate in. For example, the two main principles in magic, or the two types of magic, is sympathetic magic and contagion magic. Sympathetic magic follows the axiom presented by Hermes Trismegistus in the Corpus Hermeticum that like is known to like. Two things that are similar in nature are connected somehow. They rhyme. This is why there are rituals. When you go to church and you take communion, you are participating in this. You reenact the Eucharist, and by doing so, you resonate, rhyme, or harmonize with the past. Christ said, "Do this in remembrance of me for a reason." This is why I talk about temples as being a conduit for transdimensional information. Liturgy is like a harmonic structure we create with our behavior. Now, contagion magic says that things that have been in close proximity or contact with each other maintain a connection. I'd say most people naturally intuit this. I could hand you a silver watch and you'd gladly accept it. But if I told you right after that it belonged to a now dead serial killer psychomaniac who swore he'd come back, you'd probably feel less enthusiastic about receiving it. It's this belief that the object somehow contains the memory of its owner. Cursed objects, sacred objects. It's the same principle behind them. In psychology, this is called magical thinking, funnily enough. And from a rationalist perspective, it makes no sense. But it's as I already mentioned. Magic is perspectival, just like rest. If you can't see how things connect, it looks like magic. The people who are dancing seem crazy to those who can't hear the music. I'm sure you've heard that expression before. And that's what's been happening to the human being. We are becoming blind to the interconnectedness of everything. The past isn't way back behind us like we think it is. It's somehow always present. I'd say spirituality is probably more rational than the rationalist in this regard, because the axiom of spirituality is that everything is connected. Nature makes no leaps, and God works in mysterious ways. Mysterious connection isn't even rationally that far out there of an idea, because we see the same thing in quantum physics with quantum entanglement. Things can be connected in mysterious ways. Everything is connected in mysterious ways, and so are you. You see, if memory is a principle of connection, rhyming, and sameness, then you would naturally interface with reality in a way that is most relevant to you. You are the common denominator. The subjective observer is the linchpin in the machinery of their own personal reality. Or in other words, from your perspective, you are the very center of the universe. Everything that happens has to deal with you somehow. And many times reality seems to have an almost personal interest in you. You know, as soon as you're about to get ahead, you finally save some money, your car engine goes out. Or right when you think all hope is lost and you've hit rock bottom, you catch a lucky break. Many people will say it's coincidental or something like that, and I'm not even going to try and argue against it because it isn't the point. My point is that it is a meaningful coincidence. It's the meaning. If you want to say it's all coincidence, then reality is overflowing with coincidences. To coincide is to happen simultaneously. The fact that my head itches while I'm recording this video is a coincidence. Reality is happening to us 24/7 non-stops, but most of it is noise. However, there are certain things which come to our attention out of the static, like an identity out of the crowd. Remember that? Meaning seems to almost jump out at us. It grabs our attention. It is an apprehension that takes place. Reality is disclosed to you in a certain way based on what you believe. Your beliefs are a possibility seed that blooms into the structure of your reality disclosure. It's like the DNA sequence of your life or the genetic code of your decisions. If you want to be down to earth about it, you can just call it the plot points of your timeline. This structure has an identity. I call it your destiny. This is what synchronicity is. Call it resonance with your timeline or interfacing with the code of your life. I don't know. It is your frequency or resonance structure emerging from the harmonic backdrop of processes operating in reality that echoes into and from who knows where. And if you know anything about music, harmony and rhythm can be very simple or it can be very complex and completely irrational. It's like there's normal pop music that follows a simple pattern, and then there's full-on autistic swing jazz that just sounds like straight up noise to most people, but for those who get it, it's extremely satisfying. The way we interface with reality can take varying forms as well, the meaning we extract. This is what I meant when I said there is a door of voluntary schizophrenia you decide to walk through when it comes to this stuff. Most people sleepwalk through life and only see the surface of things, but you can go very deep to the point where you wind up all alone, where you don't connect or relate to anyone. It's just you and the alien. From the perspective of everyone else, St. John the Baptist was a complete loony. He was a man who lived in the forest, surviving by eating berries and bugs and honey. But at the same time, he was able to predict the coming of the Christ. So there's that. Subjectivity is an event space that is like a resonant echo chamber. Potential is absorbed into a kind of semi-permeable membrane where it enters and reverberates indefinitely like proverbial lightning in a bottle. And if you remember from way back, this is exactly how I explain memory. It is a box which contains a value. These things which have to be in boxes of language to be beheld. We have to identify them for them to mean something. However, our subjectivity is like this. We are one of these boxes. This box contains the totality of our activity, and from another perspective, it collapses into a single object, like the Einstein block universe, where it's all happening at once. This meaningful object is destiny, the exhaustion of potential. But this also means that we are language too. We are some kind of language that is being used to convey some kind of understanding, because the entire purpose of language is communication. It is to be understood. We are like closed entropic systems. Mine is called Tyrone. I'm the value that's inside of it. But do you know what this means? This means that we are all experiencing the very thing we have to box into language in order to behold. We are looking at reality with its outsides on the inside. I like to think of it as there really being no inside. You think you are inside of your apartment when you go home, and everything else is outside. We think the bird's nest sitting on the tree is outside, but that's the bird's apartment. You are just as outside as the bird's nest. Inside is an illusion of perspective. It is perspective itself. It is us hiding information, which ultimately forms our identity. It's the creation of boundaries. By doing this, we are seeing what mind actually looks like. Thought thinking itself, light that decided to literally stop and smell the roses. The logos is a mind that is made of language. It's a living symbol, and language extends to who knows where, to the nth dimension and beyond. All closed entropic systems organize, and emergent meaning springs forth. We see this in nature. And the same goes for us. We are just too far away from said meaning to fully understand what it is. Like how the cells in your body have no idea what a TV commercial is. It's like, do you have any idea how far away the quantum world is from us? We talk about it like it's right here in the room with us, because these are scales so vast that our brains just sort of give up on comprehending it. But you are closer to the edge of the universe than to the quantum phenomenon taking place within your body right now. Think about that. Yet things which take place way down there or in there, wherever it is, directly impacts us way up here. Do you see how far language can travel? The real difference between science and spirituality, if you want to call it that, is where they choose to end this process. Human behavior follows the same organizational motifs we see in nature. We form a collective living system. Our societal institutions are like the organs of the organism that is our culture. Before we knew about microbiology, we had no idea what caused sickness for thousands of years. It was magical. Then we discovered there is an entire unseen world, quite literally under our nose. There's an entire world over our nose as well. It's just certain people have trouble accepting that. In the same way we built a relationship with microbiology via medicine and with the quantum world via particle colliders, we are in a relationship with other planes of reality as well. They just don't present to us as biological or material. I don't know if you'd call these planes mental, psychical, transdimensional, or what have you, but you could say when the God of Abraham gave instructions on the construction of the tabernacle, it was like trans-dimensional computer prompting, similar to how we tell DNA to code for this instead of that. Now, I don't know what our lives are, but I'm certain we are performing a task. From the perspective of biology, that's what we have to be doing, because nature does not waste energy. It's economic. Everything exists for a reason. Another way we can view this process of learning and decryption is as problem solving. That's what human beings do. We solve problems. That's why missing information presents itself as puzzles to us. And perhaps that's what nature is doing with us. It's trying to solve a special kind of problem. What that problem is, I have no idea. This is the age-old question of ethics. What should be done? But what makes the human being unique is a deepened relationship with the imagination, or simply put, death. We wrestle with it our entire lives and are the only creatures on the planet who know that everything is going to end. And since life views everything in terms of survival, perhaps humanity is some kind of long-term survival strategy, but not for biology. Biology will be just fine without us. For information, it could be the case that we don't have intelligence, but rather intelligence has us and is using us like a bridge to get somewhere, like how bees transport pollen, but it's just an idea. Some people say this is actually a bad thing, that this impulse towards immortality is a demonic force. It's Faustian power lust or Ahriman or what have you, and maybe they're right. I don't know. But there is a force that has been guiding everything. It guided biology, and it's guiding humanity through history. And people don't like this idea of us being guided. It makes them uncomfortable. But we are obviously being guided because something is very interested in what should happen versus what shouldn't happen. You can call them morals, a transcendent ideal, telos. I call it destiny. Whatever makes you feel comfortable about not calling it God. This transcendent factor is completely interested in the affirmation of life. Anything against this never goes far. They never last, like a flash in the pan. Every plague, every dictator on a murderous crusade, they never last. You could blow the planet up and genetic material would be flung on a transspermic voyage to probably land somewhere else and start this process all over again. It appears that the only option is cooperation. This is what nature rewards. This is why people get filthy rotten rich by solving the problems of society at large. It is to become a friend of the pattern, to somehow assist this process in its unfolding. We are on a trajectory towards what we call the future, but I say we are a blooming possibility seed. The imagination is a super phenomenon that is being processed into discrete categories, and for us we call this processing the passage of time. So the more that is able to be processed at once, the faster time moves and the greater the intelligence. The chess player that sees 4 moves ahead is able to process way more information than the novice, and as a result, they exist in 2 different time scales. It's like a psychical time dilation where the density of memory affects the rate of time rather than the density of gravity. I do keep saying that gravity and memory seem to have a lot in common. Everything that exists is a node of the logos with its own gravitational pull. Every atom, every quanta is its own universe. It is its own eye, which serves as a window for experience. There is an endless sea of possibility seeds. And as this processing unfolds, something spooky is happening here. If you view it in terms of information and decryption, it is the construction of a master key. In alchemical terms, it is the forging of the philosopher's stone. In psychological terms, it is the realization of the self. The algorithm is searching for something I call the perfect possibility. I say we are manifesting our destiny. And the way destiny will manifest is via some kind of transformation. Most people who look into this stuff hover around this same conclusion, but we can't seem to agree on what it really means. This is what I'm currently trying to understand. What will this transformation look like? I'm not quite sure, but I do have a hunch. We are reaching some kind of higher energy state. You could say classical information will become quantum information as we approach light speed, or the explicate order will enfold into the implicate order, the many will become one, the Atman returns to Brahman, the forgotten will be remembered. There are all of these different ways to express the same thing because that's what's happening here. Different ways of expressing the same thing. But this transformation isn't just a regression. We aren't going backwards to reset where we came from. We are becoming more. Solve et coagulum. Dissolve and coagulate. To separate and rejoin to form something new. The arrival of the new means to leave the old behind. We are in the process of leaving something behind. An alchemical view on it would be something like the spiritization of matter. Teilhard de Chardin called it the Christification of matter. Matter is somehow disappearing, and when people hear this, they think it means it's going to be destroyed or something, but I don't think it's that simple. It's more like matter is disappearing because our minds are changing. Remember, the puzzle doesn't change. Mind transforms to see the answer. Subjectivity is evolving, and many people have said this before. That's what's happening. Mind is entering a new kind of phase where matter as a concept will be flipped on its head. I say consciousness is turning inside out. If I flipped you inside out, your mind would be on the outside and your body would be on the inside. You would stop seeing yourself as a mind in a body, but rather as a body in a mind. You could say, as we slide across this gradient of mystery and chaos, the truth slowly comes into focus. We are focusing. The thing in and of itself, or the Kantian noumenal realm, will be illuminated, I guess. And when this process of pulling reality into focus completes, something will happen. And something will quote unquote happen in the sense that we will know something, because knowledge is the storage of new information. That's what it means for something to happen. It is for something to be known, to be stored as memory. So this thing that happens would be akin to a realization. The word realization literally means to make real. And the only thing that could possibly become real is the imagination. The imagination will become real, as I always say. And when that happens, we learn the secret. We will hear the cosmic giggle. And if I had to guess what happens, it would be something related to time travel. We are in a paradox, and time is where all of our paradoxes seem to come from. This is what everything points to. These motifs in life and nature that we are inundated with all of the time. And no, I'm not talking about us hopping in the DeLorean and going back to the beginning, but more like the dissolution of time. It will be the end of causality as we've come to know it, this way that we currently see reality. This relationship the future has with the past is so paradoxical, and it just so happens to be the stage of our lives, the gradient in between. People think retrocausality is science fiction, but retrocausality is the entire stage of being. That's what reproduction is. Your child is like you from the past, but in the future, and you are their future from the past. You can see the mistakes your child will make even though they can't, like the chess wizard and the novice. The elderly have a very odd relationship with the past, and the test of the human enterprise has something to do with it. When you are in the future, the true test of your maturity is linked to sacrifice. It's like oftentimes when you try to help the young, they resent you, but you also know without your help, they are lost. So you have to willingly accept them hating you for their own good. This is the story of Christ, the time traveler who came from the imagination to change the past, and he did it out of love. That's what all of this is somehow about. The paradox of time we are in is this juxtaposition of the wise old man and the fool. The fool is ignorant of his own ignorance, and the wise old man probably knows too much for his own good. Childlike innocence versus a world-weary hardened heart. The freedom and potential of youth versus the inevitability of responsibility, cooperation, and death. And the shaman is the one who walks the line between both. The shaman is the wise fool, the old man whose inner child still lives, the artistic scientist, the one who lives both in the world of the living and the dead. That's why they are tricksters. It's not a coincidence that one of the biggest motifs of the psychedelic experience is the jester archetype. The trickster, and we are inside of a paradox made of language, aka a living joke. We are witnessing the redemption of the past, which is what a joke is. A prank is the creation of a false reality that is abruptly flipped on this head, and when this happens, all hidden information is revealed, which makes everything before it make sense. A joke is a series of causally disconnected factors that are all tied together in the end by the punchline. And this absurdity triggers an irrational response, the true nectar of being, of feeling, the meaning of it all.
Check it out. Give it a look.